Hello everyone, this is your code friend. Welcome to yet another video in my YouTube channel. So today in this video we are going to learn how we can load data or how we can retrieve data from different data sources using pandas. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to import the pandas library, right? So you can write it like this: import pandas as PD. Please remember guys, this as PD part is not mandatory. It's just an alias for the pandas library. The only advantage of using this part is that whenever from now onward, whenever we are going to use any pandas function, we can do it like pd.readcsv instead of pandas.readcsv. So instead of writing this entire word pandas, will be good with writing only pd. So that is the only advantage of using this alias. Otherwise there is no other advantage. So it's completely okay if you don't use any alias. That is completely fine. So first run this. So pandas has been imported with the name PD. Now first we will import our data from a CSV file. So this is the CSV file we have. The name of the CSV file is medicalpremium_experiment.csv. So these are the columns that the CSV file has. It has these columns: age, diabetes, blood pressure, any transplants, any chronic diseases, height, weight, known allergies, history of cancer in family, number of major surgeries, and then premium price. So these are the columns that this CSV file has. Now how can we import all this data from this CSV file to our pandas object? So for that, pandas offers us a very beautiful function called read_csv. So let's look at some of the very important parameters of this read_csv. The first and foremost parameter, file path _or_buffer. So this one parameter is a mandatory parameter and you have to supply it even if you don't supply any other parameters. So what it basically does, by this parameter you specify the path at which, the path or the URL at which that particular file is existing, from where you want to import your data. So in our case, the file, this file is let's see where this file is located. In my system it is located in downloads. So what we will do, so to check the folder path, we have to right click on the file, go to properties, and in properties, in the general tab, you can see the location is given. So this is the location of the file. So this is the path. Let's copy the path. Let's go back to Jupyter Notebook, paste it here, and after this we have to append the file name along with its extension. Fine. So let's go to properties once again. So we have to take this entire thing. You should not miss the extension, because in that case your read CSV function is not gonna work. Okay, so let's paste it here. So this is the complete file path. Now while specifying file path as a string in Python, we have to use it as a raw string, and a raw string, we use raw string like this. We enclose the string as usual in the single quotes, and we start the string with the R. It can be a capital R or small r. So why we do this? If we don't do this, if we just use this string without this character R, it will generate an error. It will consider these backslash characters as escape characters, which we don't want. So whenever we use file paths in Python, we prepend an R at the beginning of the string. So what will be our function? Our function will be read_csv, and inside that function we have to pass this parameter. this string, the file path string. Fine. Now this read CSV function returns us a data frame object. So let's name the reference df. As it returns our data frame, so we are giving it a name df. You can give it any name of your choice. So let's run the cell. Okay, so there is some error. This error is thrown because the Python cannot recognize the read underscore CSV function. This read underscore CSV function belongs to this pandas module. So we have to write it like this: pd.read CSV. So it gives an indication that we are trying to use the read CSV function of the pandas module. Fine. Now if we run the cell, it will work fine for us. So our data has been imported in the object called df. Now if you check the type of the object df, it's basically a data frame. Fine. So let's print our df object. Let's run our cell again by pressing Alt plus Enter. So this is your entire data frame. Fine. So you can see all the columns are there and rows from 0 to 985, that is total 986 rows, and 11 columns have been imported from the CSV file. Now let's look at some other parameters that we can use. So if we go here, if we click somewhere around this, somewhere on this read CSV function, if you press Shift plus Tab, it gives us the entire documentation of the function. So if you expand it, if you go down, there are a whole lot of parameters. It's not possible to discuss all the parameters in a single video. I am just discussing the parameters that we use most frequently. There is a parameter called names. Yes, there is a parameter called names. What does it do? It gives you the flexibility of overriding the existing column names. So this names parameter, what it does, it list of column names to use. If the file contains a header row, then you should explicitly pass header equal to 0 to override the column names. Duplicates in this list are not allowed. So in this names parameter, you can pass a list with the preferred name of columns of your choice. And while doing this, you also have to keep one more thing in mind, and that is you have to also pass the value of the header parameter as 0. So let's do that as well. So instead of using age, diabetes, blood pressure, etc., let's say, just for the sake of learning it, okay, let's close this now. Let's copy it from here. Let's give it another name, let's say df1, and here let's say we use the names parameter. Okay, before using the names parameter, let us pass the value of header as 0, and in names we pass, so there are total 11 columns, right? So let's say we pass something like col1. It's just for practice, guys. Please note that even if you want to override the column names, you have to give some meaningful column names. Fine. So you cannot give column names like col1 or col2. I am doing just it for just making you familiar with the syntax. But in real life scenario, when you will work on real life projects, you should never give column names like col1, col2, col3, etc. So let's give the name col1, copy it from here and paste it, then again paste it, paste it, paste it, paste it. Okay, so bring it in the next line. It's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So let's run the cell, and now let's print the df1 data frame. You can see that your column names have been replaced with the names that you have passed. Fine. So now that we have seen what the names parameter can do, let us look at another parameter. So let's again press on shift tab to see the documentation of the function. So there is another useful parameters called useCalls. Yes, this is another useful parameter called useCalls. So let's again copy our original function. Okay. So okay, before using the parameter useCalls, let me tell you what it actually does. Let's say from this file you don't want to import all the columns, you only want to import selected columns. Let's say you want to import this blood pressure, any transplant, any chronic diseases, and height, these 4 columns. So what you basically have to do is that in useCalls you have to mention the name of these 4 columns as a list. So basically this is the thing you have to do. Let's take it to the next line. Create a list, and then you can also copy it from here. Age, then let's use only 3 columns. Let's say we want to use this first 3 columns: age, diabetes, and blood pressure. So age, diabetes, and blood pressure problems. Fine. So now if you run your cell once again, and now if you print df2, you can see that only 3 columns have been imported. Similarly, if you just want to import only 2 columns, you will pass 2 values. It's simple, right? Let's run this cell again, and let's print it again. Yeah, only 2 columns have been imported. Now instead of, okay, while specifying the column names, you have to remember one thing, that is the column names which have been mentioned in the Excel or in the CSV should exactly match the column names that you are passing here in the useCalls parameter. If there is even slightest of mismatch between the column names that you are using and the column names that are present here, let's see what happens. Let's run this cell once again, and you'll get a value error. So useCalls do not match columns. So the blood pressure problem, and it gives you the column that is not matching with any of the columns in the Excel. So this is one column that you have specified which does not match with any of the columns in the Excel. So that's why this error has been raised. Fine. So let's modify our code, run it. Okay, instead of specifying the exact column names, there is another way to filter your columns. So you can use the indexes or the numbers of the column. So for example, this is the 0th column. That is, you know that the index of a list starts from 0. So if you consider that this is the beginning column, so this we can call this as the 0th column. So this is the column number 1, column number 2, column number 3, and so on. So let's say we want to keep only these 3 columns: diabetes, blood pressure problems, and any transplants. So what we will have to pass to the useCalls parameter, we will have to pass 2, 3, and 4, right? So if you pass 2, 3, 4, and if you run the cell, then if you rerun it, you can see that only 3 columns have been imported. blood pressure problems, any transplants, and any chronic diseases. Fine. Okay, so we have learned most of the useful parameters. So the next parameter that we are going to learn is index underscore call. Fine. So what this parameter actually does is that it specifies which column should be used as the index of the data frame. So what is index? Let's close this. So if you look at this data frame, you can see that each row has a particular label. So the label of the first row is 0, the second row is 1, the third row is 2, and so on. So as we have not mentioned anything specifically as the index of the data frame, so it has taken the serial number or the consecutive number starting from 0 as the labels of the data frame. These labels are actually called the index of the data frame. Now you can specify that if you, let's say if you want this particular column age to be treated as the index of the data frame. So in that case, what you will do here, let's copy this once again, and here in call underscore index you will specify age. Fine, and you store it here, run this. Okay, sorry, we probably have given a wrong parameter name, so it should be index underscore call, not call underscore index. Index underscore call. Alt enter, it has run fine. Let's print the data frame, and here you can see the age column has been used as the index of the data frame. So this is how you can use a particular column as the index of the data frame. Just like the previous case, instead of using the exact column name, you can also specify an integer value which matches with the number of the column. We can say that age is the 0th column, so you can pass 0 instead of passing age. Let's run it again. Let's print it again, and you can see the same result. That is, the age column has been used as the index of the data frame. Fine. So you can instead of using just one column as the index, you can use multiple columns. In that case, it will be a multi-index data frame, but we are not going to that in our next videos. When we will learn data frame in more detail, we will see some multi-index data frames. So let's not worry about that right now. Okay, so the next parameter that we are going to discuss is parse dates. So what this parameter actually does, it retrieves the mentioned columns as timestamp instead of strings. So here, okay, here we do not have any particular, here we do not have any date columns or any columns that corresponds to some particular date or date time. Fine. So for this example, I will use a different CSV file. Okay, let's consider this particular CSV file. Here there is a date column, right? So this parse dates, but this date column, if you import this data frame, let's first import this data frame. So just copy the code from above, remove this parameter because we don't need it here. Change the name of the file. So the name of our file is this. Let's store it in a different data frame. Run it. So it has been loaded in the data frame. Let's print the data frame. Now if you check the values of the date column, let's access the value of the date column, df5. It's df5, right? Yes, df5 dot, what is the name of the column? Date. So if you want to access the first value of the date column, you can access it like this. Okay, now from this you can understand that as it is enclosed in single quotes, it is actually stored as a string. You can verify that by typing type. Let's run it, and it's a string. But let's say we want to convert it to timestamp. So why on earth would we want to convert a particular column from string to timestamp? There are some specific advantages of that. That the timestamp data type provides us with some date and time related very useful functions which the string data type doesn't provide us. So sometimes it becomes important to parse a particular column as a timestamp column instead of a string column. So how we can do that? So we can do that by using the parseStates parameter. Inside the parseStates, you have to specify which of the columns you want to parse as timestamp columns. Fine. So I want to parse this column. Let's run this cell once again. Let's print the data frame, and if you rerun this cell, you can see it gives us pandas.libs.tslibs.timestamps.timestamp. So it's basically a timestamp column. Now if you just, let's say, if you store this value in a variable called t, and if you want to and just press dot, and then if you press tab, it gives you IntelliSense. So what basically IntelliSense does, it gives you the list of functions and attributes that you can apply on this particular variable. So on timestamp kind of variable, you can apply this many things. So let's say for this particular date, I want to know the name of the day. So you can apply the day underscore name on this t variable. If you run this, okay, so it's a function, so you have to use it as a function. If you run this, it gives you Monday. So this date 24th February 2020 was a Monday. So if you convert your column as a timestamp column, these all functions you can use which the string data type doesn't provide you. So it sometimes becomes necessary to use the parseStates parameters, and instead of passing the list of columns to the parseState parameter, if you want to if you just pass true to the parseStates parameter, what it will do is that it will go and try to parse the index as a timestamp column. But in our case, in this data frame, the index are simple numbers. It will not be able to parse the indices of the data frame as timestamp. So this is the utility of the parseStates parameter. So with this, we have discussed about the most commonly used parameters in the read CSV function. So we saw how we can import data from a CSV file using the read CSV function in pandas. We can do the same thing, that is we can read data from an Excel file as well. And for that, Pandas provides a very similar function called read_excel. Let's use that function as well. So pd.read_excel. So we have a file called marged data. So in this is basically an Excel file. From the extension of the file, that is .xlsx, you can clearly understand that it is an Excel file. So in this file, we have two different sheets. In the first sheet, we have the medical insurance premium data that we saw earlier, and in sheet 2, we have the COVID data that we saw earlier. So let's look at the important parameter of read Excel function as well. So this, as I just mentioned, almost all the parameters of read Excel function are exactly similar to those of the read CSV function. So there is one additional parameter called sheet name. So what this function parameter actually does, it's simply using this parameter, you simply can specify the name of the sheet from which you want to import your data. Let's say we want to import only the medical insurance data and not the COVID data. So in that case, we will specify sheet name equal to sheet 1. And on the other hand, if we just want to import the COVID data, then we will specify sheet name equal to sheet 2. Let's see that in action. So I have kept my file in the same path. The file name only will be changed. So it will be marged data.xlsx. It will be marged data.xlsx, and then we have to specify the sheet name from which we want to import the data. Let's say we want to import only the COVID data, and that is present in this sheet. So you can specify sheet 2. Let's see if this works or not. Let's run our cell, and it has worked fine. So if you print your data frame, it gives you the COVID data that we have imported from the sheet 2 of the Excel. Now instead of using the exact sheet name, again you can use an integer. So we have two different sheets, right? So obviously the first sheet will be sheet 0 and the second sheet will be 1. So if we want to import data from this sheet, we will simply specify 1 here, and it will do the same thing for us, right? It will do the same thing for us. Similarly, if you specify 0 and rerun the cell, let's rerun the cell, it will import the medical insurance data for us. Rest all the parameters are exactly the same as that of the read CSV function. So use calls, header, names, index call, per states, all of these parameters have already been discussed. Now case of read CSV function, we had something called file name or buffer. Here the same parameter has a different name called IO, but they do the same thing. In this IO parameter, you have to pass the path, the complete path of the file from which you are trying to import your data, or you can also specify the URL in which that particular file exists if you want to access the file through internet, right? So this is how these two functions work, friends. I hope this is clear to you. There are many other parameters as well. As I just mentioned, you can just go to the name of the function, press Shift tab and it will give you the entire documentation. You can read it from here, or you can go to their official website. If you go to the official website of Pandas official documentation, you can read it from there as well. Fine. So here you get all these things. Fine. Here you can search your read CSV or read Excel, and let's search it here. You can see the read CSV function has been given, and from here you can check the entire documentation of the function. Fine. Before concluding my video, I will show you another function with which you can read the data from a JSON as well. So it's again, the name is very similar, pd for pandas and pandas.read_JSON, right? So again, in read_JSON function, the first parameter that we have to pass is the complete path of the file. So the file name will obviously be changed. We have okay. So let me first show you the file. So I have opened it using a notepad. So I have taken only very small amount of data from the CSV file called medical premium underscore experiment, and I have stored that in using the .json extension. So I have stored it in the JSON format. So this is the JSON file from which we have to import our data. So let's first change the name of the file. It will be medical premium experiment and then underscore, okay, it will be underscore columns dot JSON, underscore columns dot JSON. Fine. So this is the entire file path. Okay. So another very important parameter while retrieving data from a JSON, another very important parameter that we have to pass is orient. Now let me tell you what this parameter actually does. So orient, it's basically an indication of expected JSON string format. It basically specifies whether the keys and values of the JSON should be treated as index or columns in the resulting data frame. So by reading this description, things might not be very clear to you. Don't worry, I will explain it in detail to you. So if we go to our JSON, so this is our JSON, right? So here a JSON is just like a dictionary. Okay, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So it's basically a JavaScript object, and the JavaScript objects are just like dictionary. Each of the keys, these keys of the JavaScript objects, these are called properties of the JavaScript object. What we call the keys in the dictionary, these are called as properties of the JavaScript object. Fine. You look at this object, if you consider this as a dictionary, these are the keys of the dictionary, right? Age, diabetes and blood pressure problems, these are the three keys of the dictionary. If you have gone through my Python playlist, I have discussed in details what are keys and what are values in a dictionary. So these are the three keys of the dictionary, right? Now in the orient parameter, we specify whether the keys should be treated as the columns or they should be treated as the index. So the keys here, age, diabetes and blood pressure problems, these should be treated as columns, right? These actually are columns which have been used in the as the keys in the JSON object. So here in the orient parameter, or let's try with columns first. Store it in another variable called df7. So run this first and then run this cell, and you can see that the keys of the JSON object, the keys, these three keys of the JSON object have been treated as the columns of the resulting data frame. Now, instead of passing columns here, if we pass index, okay, first we have another JSON file. Let's go to that JSON file. So in this JSON file, you can see that the keys are 0, 1 and 2. So these are the three keys. Now from this and inside this we have age 45, diabetes 0, blood pressure problem 0. 0 means they do not, this particular patient doesn't have diabetes, this particular patient also doesn't have any blood pressure problem. Okay, so coming back to our discussion, here the keys are 0, 1 and 2, and inside that we have the individual properties. So from the keys you can understand that these are the index or the name of the rows. These are the name of each of the rows. This cannot be the columns, right? These are the columns. Age, diabetes, blood pressure problems, these are the columns. But the outer keys, if you consider these outer keys, these are the index of the rows, right? So here you have to specify index. Okay, so let's run our cell, and if you again run this cell, you can see, okay, so this is not the file from which we want to import our data. This data is existing in this file underscore index.json, so we have to change the file name as well, underscore index.json. Run this again, and you can see that 0, the keys of the JSON object, the keys of the JSON object 0, 1 and 2 have been treated as the index of the resulting data frame. So what does this orient parameter actually do? It determines the structure, or it determines whether the keys of the JSON from which we are importing data, whether the keys should be treated as columns or the keys should be treated as rows. In this JSON, the keys should be treated as columns. We want the keys to be treated as columns in our resulting data frame. That's why we earlier specified column in the orient parameter, but in this data frame, in this JSON, we want the keys of the JSON object to be treated as index. That's why in the orient parameter we specified index. Fine guys, I hope this is clear to you. So what we specify inside the orient parameter actually determines whether the keys of the JSON object should be treated as rows or the name of the rows, or the keys should be treated as the name of the columns. Fine. So there can be other values of the orient parameter as well. I am not going in that detail. We do not use this pd.readJSON that often. Still, if you want to explore this function in more detail, you can go to the documentation of this function and you can read these parameters and play with them. You are free to do that. Fine. And if you find any difficulty in understanding, you can let me know that in the comment section. And please be noted that the link to this notebook as well as link to download the individual CSV and JSON files will be given in the description section of this video. So please don't worry about that. You can download them and you can practice it on your own. So if you have liked my video, please subscribe to my channel and please hit the bell icon so that you get notified when I'll upload more Python and data science related videos. And please don't forget to like and share my video so that it reaches a larger audience and they also get benefited from it. Thanks a lot for watching.